It's March and my indoor season for this 2024 year is officially over. So now that it's done, let's go over and see what actually happened. So for this season, I've had 10 races so far. 9 of them were 60-meter races, and 1 of them was a 200-meter. So we'll start with 200. This was at the LUCA in December, where I ran 23.97. It was a heat, so I was jogging the entire thing. I never got through to the finals for that because I didn't know, stupidly, that it was based off the fastest 6 heats, not just by winning your heats. If I did, the result probably would have been a bit different, because to get through to the finals, you needed to run, I think it was a 20, which is exactly I could have done that. So technically, for indoors, when it comes to 200, I went from 24.4 for the 200 to 23.97. But for those of you that remember, last indoors when I ran the 3.44, you know that I actually fell out on my lane and I was tripping the entire 200. So I ended up slowing down, so I was like, I got disqualified. I think that's why I thought they didn't have time. So I was like, I might as well just jog, it's lost, but they let me have the time anyway. So it's not really a real PB, but it's a PB nonetheless. But something that I find interesting is, whilst it's not real PB, I was able to jog with 23.97 really easily, much easier than I was jogging with 3.44. So we can expect some improvements come the out of the 2024 season. We can probably expect to open with at least this time minus 1 second. Next is the 60s in December. So the first 2 were still same competition, same meet at LUCA, London University College Athletics Championships. So I started indoors with a PB of 7.49, which I set last year. I only ran 160, and that was with a minor amount of sprint training from my coach. I only met my coach that same week, and I was 7.49. I could have run a bit faster, potentially my old technique, but no. So I did the heats, I won the heats, and I ran 7.3 really easily. I got out quite hard. Then at about 35-40 meters, I looked to my left, saw the guy on my left, was like, man, he was so far back. I looked to my right and I could see this one guy really falling me, so I just matched his strides to make sure that I could stay in front of him. I got through. In between the first race, the heats, and the finals, I was speaking to my coach and we were talking about block starts, and we realized that my block starts push was wrong, because I was pushing into the pedals, and then when I hit bang, I'd push again into the pedals, both legs, and then I'd split. When in reality, I just needed to fully push into the pedals, hit bang, and then split my legs. I was spending more time in the blocks than I needed to. So once we had this conversation, my coach changed my technique, and I went into the finals with this, but I didn't really understand how to run it properly, which is really sad. So I ended up running 7.17 in the finals, coming second. I came from dead last, and I ended up coming second. The person who won ran 7.14, which I potentially could have beat. There's no point in giving up spilled milk, but I ended up getting a silver medal for that, which is behind the camera right now. I'm not gonna go grab it. After that, 2 weeks later, back at my home track, I would be having 2 more 60-meter races. This time, it wasn't for the proper competition, it was just open meets. And I ended up running the 7.19, then the 7.18. I spent a lot of time at home practicing my starts, trying to find a way to improve them. And then after this, even more so, because this is the first time in any race where I failed to PB, which felt weird for me because it's just never happened before. Usually I run a race and I always PB. The only time where this has happened was 400 in 2021, where I ran my PB time and I just never touched that again. I went from touching PB to going up a bit and coming back down and keep it, and then I went back up. But when it came to 100s, 200s, and even 60s, there was never been a time before this where I run and failed to PB. So this was a new experience for me to deal with, but it ate me up a bit. I spent a lot of time trying to work on my starts. And then in January, same meet, same track, I did the exact same thing. I did 7.19 and 7.18. The difference is in December, I came third in both my races, whilst in January, I came first and then third. So it's more just like a luck of the spin for the heats that I was in. after this, 2 more weeks later, because every single one of these meets was basically spaced out 2 weeks apart, I ended up changing my block starts. I think I might have moved the front pedal in by 1, and the back pedal stayed the same, but I moved the front pedal in by 1, and I changed the height potentially. So what ended up happening was my hip height sunk more than it should have. And then I went to London Indoor Games, and I ran, and I ran 7:23 and 7:22, my slowest times ever. This really hurt me because it's one thing to be running 7:19 or 7:18, because that's only 0.01 and 0.2 of my PB. It's a completely other thing to be running 7:23 and 7:22, because the distance for my PB is growing now, which is really bad, because my next race after this was going to be BUCS, and if I'm only getting slower, it's not looking very good for BUCS at all. But I ended up spending time by myself. This is when I actually decided, okay, I usually train Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday. Let me go get an extra day Wednesday, because Wednesday is my best performance day, I've realized, but I don't train on that day for some reason, but I perform the best on Wednesday. So let me take Wednesday, and let me just spend time just focusing on just my blocks. So I came, spent about 5 minutes on one of these days, looked at my blocks, and I was like, okay, this is too far forwards. Let me refix some stuff, and then I got the block starts that I was having in November. I watched a video from, I forgot his name, but it's around 999 and 100, where he was explaining the block start, and I realized I was too scrunched up. And he was really talking about how it's hard to use power in the gym. I'm going to put the link for that in the cards up above. He was really mainly talking about how it's hard to produce power if you're scrunched up in the blocks. But I also realized that when you're scrunched up in the blocks, your hips sink, and it's hard for you to also take steps, which he might have actually addressed in the video as well. But I realized this before he said it, if he didn't, the same time, I don't remember. And I was like, if I want to be powerful, I can't be focused on, let me be as close to the line as possible, because whilst that makes sense logically, trying to get a strong push, it doesn't work that way. So I realized, okay, let me just reposition myself in the blocks to do what I'm supposed to do in the blocks, and just push out and start to build momentum. So I'm trying to get my back leg as far away from the line as possible for the first step. And then I had the final race of my indoor season at BUCS. But a week before, I got injured in my right knee, unfortunately, which was my left knee. I keep doing this, my left knee, which was sad because I don't want an injury if possible, but it happened and I have to deal with it. And I went to BUCS. My technique was much better though, because I was back to how I was in November, but I removed some of the technical efficiencies and I had better hip extension, which is great. And I ended up running 716, and that 716 was run really easy with an injured knee. Basically stopped pushing past about 40 meters because of my knee, and I didn't dip, because usually I dip, and every single time I dip I take off 0.02 from what I should have ran, but I didn't dip, and I guess you could say I suffered for it, but with an injury I don't mind, because what was really annoying about this knee is when I come out of the blocks, some of my steps are just useless. I'm pushing, I'm extending my hips, and my leg just clams back up, and was taking no steps. Maybe if the step before I was traveling, let's say 50 centimeters, then the next step I could try and extend, and it's only 5 centimeters. So I was actually wasting steps, unfortunately, which was sad. But the fact that I was doing that, and in that 60, I was basically with everyone, well, the people that mattered anyway, for the first 3 steps, I believe it was. I think I started maybe the 4th step. I'll take that as a win, because the start of my race is the worst part of my race. So if I wasn't injured, I know I probably could have caught up from behind, and maybe I would have got 7. But let's not get our hopes up. We'll see what happens for outdoors, but for indoors, that's the story. So the stats. For indoors, I've run 4 races where I came first, including the 200. I PB'd 3 times, 4 times if you include my 200 indoor time, which is technically a PB. I got 1 medal and I attended 1 national competition. Based off of all of this, what did I learn from indoors that I'm going to take with me into outdoors? And I've noticed this a lot, which is I like to experiment, so every now and then, some of the lessons that I learn are lessons that I already knew. I just wanted to make sure that they're true. And the number one lesson I'm going to take is you can't PB every race, and you shouldn't try to race as much as possible. What I mean when I say that is always self-explanatory. I was competing every 2 weeks, and with that, I stopped training for a week to recover, which meant I'd only have a week to prepare for my next race, try and improve my technique and all that other stuff that you really when sprinting before I go into another competition, which is not enough time. If I had at least 2 weeks, so if I was pacing out my competitions every 3 weeks, maybe I could have PB'd every competition then, because I actually would have had time where I would have had time to take time off, work my way into training, prepare in 1 week, and then prepare for my competition while also getting better in my technique the next week, then I go and compete. So for me anyway, don't try and compete every 2 weeks, because I need time to learn how to improve. I can learn a lot from a video in a week whilst I'm not training, but I can't use what I've learned to improve myself the next week before I have another competition. So I need to take time out so I can actually improve. That is part of the reason why I was able to PB in the end in that 760, because there was a month and 2 days of a gap between BUCS and the London Indoor Games where I ran at 7:22, and because of that gap I had time to research videos, put in some work, figure out what was wrong, teach my body what was wrong so I could figure it out, and then recover from all my other competitions so I was most likely on work, and then go into BUCS and try and be the best person I possibly could. If I did all of that a month earlier, most likely my times for the 60 would have been much lower than how I ended them with, but I don't want to get too focused on the 60 anyway, because the 60 was just a bit of fun, and along with that it was working on what I'm really bad at, which is the first 60, mainly just the first 40. But now that I managed to get that decent enough, I'm in a much better position for when outputs come. So I'm expecting to open with a 10-second time, most likely. Depends. We'll see. If I'm still injured, because I'm competing at New Valley, the 6th of April. If by the time the New Valley rolls around I'm still injured, I'll be happy with a minor PB busted in 11s. But if I'm healed up, I expect to break 11. It should not be hard for me at this point. I am well in condition. If I'm PBing in the 60 injured and jogging in the end part, basically, I should be able to break 11 seconds, because my 60s are really slow anyway. And my best part of my race is around 50 in the first 50. So if I'm already so fast in the first 50, I can expect great things when I actually get to start the 100s. And then for the 200, I'm actually better at the 200, but that's all up in the air. I never know when I'm on the 200. I might want to say good, I might want to say alright. And that's purely because whenever I run a 200, I always have run a 100 before, so the 200 is basically a round. That's why when I ran my 11:18 in the 100, I did the 200 straight afterwards. I ran 22:94, when I probably could have been running 22:5 about if I only did the 200. So we'll see what we can do, but for now, I'm just going to keep rehabbing my knee and training at track to try and prepare myself for April when we get to outdoors finally.